This is Passion with Dr. Laurie Betito on Montreal's News Talk Leader, CJAD 800.
Dating dilemmas tonight on Passion. Frank Kermit of franktalks.com is here. He's a dating coach, an author, educator, and a columnist for the West End Times newspaper. He writes about relationships. That's what he does best, franktalks.com. Tonight we're talking about relationships. We're talking about actually the icky side to relationships, which is the breakup part, which is almost inevitable. You talk about the beginnings. We also have to talk about the ends.
Chances are the majority of relationships you're going to be in throughout the course of your life
will end.
Will end. One way or another.
Nobody wants to know that. Nobody wants to think that, because when you start a relationship and you get serious with someone, when it's good, you really hope it'll be good forever.
Right, but that's just not realistic. And holding on to these romantic ideals is never going to live up to the reality. And even when you do love your partner and you do have a special connection and you want to have a future with this person, you got to know that you're going to get sick, you're going to catch cold, you're going to have bad days, you're going to struggle with work, you may struggle with money, and then the kids and the pets and the landlord.
Or the mental illness or physical illness. I mean, there's all kinds of things you could be struggling with in a lifetime.
If you're going to start thinking long-term, can this work long-term? That's where you have to start looking at compatible values. That's when you have to start looking at whether or not you want the same type of future together.
Right.
As opposed to trying to change your partner into what you would want.
Right. And often I'll, meet with couples or talk to people who go into a relationship. They know they don't want anything more serious, but their partner doesn't seem to know that. Where it's really not clear. Or they say one thing but do another, so that the person really hears only what they want to hear, only the part that makes sense to them, or only the part that they really want to hear. And then it becomes really confusing. And it's almost like it hits them out of left field when the person says, well, I don't, that's it for me. I don't want this. And they're like, what do you mean you don't want this? But you did this, you did that. That showed me you wanted. But I also said I didn't want to get serious. So sometimes we hear what we want to hear, Let's hear from Calvin. Hi, Calvin.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm just calling about a relationship breakup that actually happened a little while ago.
Okay.
As probably about 2 years ago, and kind of took it particularly hard. And I just kind of really never felt like I got over it. It's been 2 years, and I was just wondering, I don't know if you have any tips on what you can do to kind of move on.
All right, I'll let Frank take it away then.
Hi, Calvin.
Hi.
All right. First thing you have to consider is that this person who you're struggling to get over may have become a symbol. And it's a lot harder to get over a symbol than it is to get over a human being.
Uh-huh.
So the fact that the two of you are not together is a sign that this was not the right person for you. However, if she became a representation for everything that you would want in a relationship, that's a lot harder to mourn because you're mourning a myth. Do you understand what I'm saying?
You're saying my ex-girlfriend is an archetype?
A little bit more than that. When I was pining for my ex-fiancée for 7 years.
It's an awfully long time.
It was. And then I met up with her 7 years later. I was shocked to discover that, wow, she's a human being and she has changed. But the image that I had in my mind of her was the same person that I met, 7 or 10 years previous.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what I had to do to deconstruct my attraction to her was to realize that so much of what I was in love with was something that I created in my mind and superimposed on her. She became a symbol. The fact that she and I broke up became a part of my identity. I must be a loser because she broke up with me.
Right.
And it's because I superimposed all of these meanings onto this other person, that's what made it impossible for me to move on.
The other thing, if I can add, is that we often get very nostalgic about past relationships, and we forget why we broke up. So you only remember the good, and you tend to forget what was bad. So reminding yourself of why you broke up, why aren't you together? There's got to be some good reasons why you're not together.
Not quite sure. I was the dumpy. She was the dumper. I kind of figured. I can be a bit of a let's say hard-nosed, because I'm not sure what I can say on the radio. But
we got the message, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of figured, it was kind of a collection of those kinds of things, which I've, personally been trying to work over, obviously.
Okay, good.
I've kind of come to the realization, though, that it's probably more of a 50-50 thing, and I don't really know what the reasons were, though. I'm going to be completely frank. I mean, I'm a young person, and I haven't been in any relationships, so I couldn't tell you.
Well, I think part of the problem here is that you didn't get closure, and that's where it's left you like the thread hanging there. There's still some loose ends for you.
Calvin, let me ask you something. Have you gotten into relationships since this breakup?
Honestly, no.
And is that because you haven't had the opportunity to date, or is it because even when you date somebody, go out with them a couple times, you just don't feel enough of a connection to continue?
It's mostly the former, but the latter has happened, yeah. I mean, I haven't been on many dates. They weren't great, and it's not like I'm really in a position to be finding dates either, so.
Okay.
Just in terms of work.
Okay. You don't feel confident. You don't have the esteem or the confidence that you feel you could bring to a relationship right now. Because of your work situation.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, I guess that's it. Sure. Once again, this is kind of introspection, and that's something that we don't do often.
No, it isn't.
Calvin, I got to tell you, do you make time to date? Do you make time to go out and pursue relationships?
No.
Okay. Is it possible? Is it possible that because you got your heart broken so bad that you're looking for ways to stay out of that possibility?
That's a very distinct possibility.
Well,
and putting it in plain terms kind of makes it a little bit more of a realistic possibility.
Okay, something that I can tell you, having gone through this process, keeping yourself out of dating new people and meeting new people and having new experiences and getting new memories to replace the old ones, staying out of that loop is part of why it's so difficult to get over the first one.
Well, how do you get back into that loop? That's a great question.
Yet you start off by dating who wants to date you until you learn the social skills so that you can start dating the people you want to date.
Right.
Okay, I'll give you a quick example here. I once took a girl up onto Mount Royal, drove up there, blanket, a candle. It was a really nice romantic time. We broke up. Well, how do I replace that memory? Because I really missed that first girl. The next girl I date, even though we really didn't connect that well, I still took her on the same exact date so that I lost the major attachment. Every time I went back up to Mount Royal, I didn't feel bad again because I'm remembering the first girl. I just know that no matter what girl I date, I'm going to take her up the mountain.
It was no longer sacred.
Exactly. No longer sacred. And that's what Frank was talking about, the myth, where you create that myth in your mind where she becomes this sacred, all perfect woman that you somehow lost.
Right.
So you need to get out there and also do the work on yourself because, it is 50-50 and you did contribute to this breakup because obviously she had some complaints.
Yeah.
She didn't do it for nothing. So you need to listen to what was it because maybe you'll hear, and I'll tell you, when I see couples who have been married multiple times and they're in trouble, I often ask, well, what did your first wife complain about? Well, guess what? The second wife and the third wife complained about the exact same things. So you want to find out, use that information to grow for yourself so that you're not repeating that in new relationships.
Right.
So you're right about when you said the word introspection, that's exactly what you need to do. Use that time for the introspection.
One last thing, Calvin. Here's a perspective you might want to consider. You don't go out on dates to find your soulmate. You go out on dates to learn about yourself.
Yeah, that's true. That's a very good approach to dating. It's a whole lot less pressure.
Exactly, because when I went through my development, I was no longer dating all these women because, okay, if I date this woman, she might be my soulmate. I was dating these women to find out what are my boundaries really. I may say that I want a certain type of relationship, but you only know once you're in it. Learn about yourself through dating.
Good advice, Frank. Calvin, good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
Keep us posted. All right, bye-bye now. 514-790-0991. Dating dilemmas tonight. If you've got a dilemma you want to talk about in terms of dating, then give us a call right here on Passion on CJAD 800.